All right. The second one is that it raises epistemological awareness. Again, epistemology is our how we know things. So probability, probably the central and most distinctive aspect of the Reformed apologetics is the emphasis of reckoning with the epistemological dimensions of belief and unbelief. Reformed apologists have forced apologists of other approaches to become more aware of their own epistemological framework, as well as those of the non-Christian they are seeking to convince. There's no neutrality, and so why are you giving people on the other side a neutral a platform that you then step upon? What does that mean to your witness? And so that's the call. That's the transformation that we want to speak against here. Well, this epistemological consciousness raising has a number of different elements that they go on to talk about.
Right. So they're going to list several of these epistemological elements. First, the Reformed apologists have made a forceful case for recognizing that there's an epistemological divide between Christians and non-Christians, right? Mm-hmm. Christians recognize that our knowledge faculties have been corrupted by sin and need restoration through the regeneration and sanctifying work of the Holy Spirit. Non-Christians obviously generally do not recognize the situation. So there is this divide then between the basis of knowledge between the Christian and the non-Christian, right? And so that's the first thing that Reformed apologists wants us to understand. There's a different perspective, a different worldview at work here, even though the foundation of it is really God and his revelation. There's a denial of that by the unbeliever, right?
All right, well then second, Reformed apologists have made apologists of all approaches more aware of the role of presuppositions play in human thought in general and in religious thought in particular. It is not so much the stated assumptions or beliefs as the unstated presuppositions that prevent non-Christians from taking Christianity seriously. So even if we're talking about characters in fiction, we still have to have a touch point to the God of the Bible, providing the necessary preconditions for intelligibility in order for us to even read a story, to have touch points between us and a fictional world, and then how much more so in between us and the real world, and how about us when it comes to our political lives, or us and how we raise our children, or us and how we view education. So all those things are predicated on presuppositions that we may not have kind of come to fully recognize we're always there, but have been there. And so we just sometimes are too easy to say, well, we're just doing this because of the fact that it's expected of us, or something along those lines. And so this method allows us to kind of take a step back in the general, but also in our everyday religious outpouring. Does the work that I do based on my faith in Jesus Christ, is that predicated on my understanding of the God of the Bible? Or is this just something that I'm expected to do because it's traditionally been known to happen in my church? So those highlights have been helpful with this method.
Right, exactly. And so we have to kind of understand those various presuppositions. This gets us to our third point here. The Reformed apologist rightly emphasizes, our authors tell us, that a discussion of only facts may prove fruitless if the non-Christian's philosophy of fact is not challenged, right? There's likely little use in trying to debate, for instance, the scientific evidence for creation versus evolution with the non-Christian, who assumes that science must look at all the facts from an assumption of naturalism. So we ferret out that assumption, and we, for all practical purposes, attack that assumption, right? And so So there's this position then that the Reformed apologist emphasizes that just looking at facts is not going to get us that far.
Right.
We must unearth their particular assumptions and then go after that.
Right. Right. Let's take for assumption that God doesn't exist. Now use the science that I say is proved and prove to me that God exists. Well, I'm going to be at a huge disadvantage because the assumption is there that it doesn't. It will never happen. So, yes. All right. Well, and then fourth, Reformed apologists should be heeded when they warn apologists to be careful not to compromise their own commitments epistemologically when defending the faith. For example, there is much to be said for avoiding the line of reasoning that the evidence for God's existence outweighs the evidence against it. So you're just if I just had 51 proofs to my 50 against it, then I should believe.
Well, okay, 49 against it.
Yeah. Can we maybe talk about why there's then so many evidences against it? Well, surely in God's world, even marred by sin, there cannot be any real evidence against God's existence if true. And so why take this assumption that there are evidences against God's existence?
Right. So think about it. Why would the Christians say, well, I think there's more evidence for the existence of God than there is against the existence of God. Right. If you believe that God exists, that he's the creator of all of life and all everything that's in existence, there is no evidence against God's existence, right? I mean, everything points to God. Every fact points to God. And so how can there be any evidence against God's existence, right? That's the point that they're trying to make here.
I tell somebody that I'm married and I say, but, there is good reason to believe that I'm not married. But hold on. That's entirely the weirdest way to try and show that you're married. Well, I have a ring. I have this piece of paper signed by witnesses, but also the pictures in my household, I photoshopped all of them. I mean, we're not going to say that. And so therefore, that would be a weird way to present this counter evidence to the existence of being married. So it's a weird way to frame it on God existing or not.
Right. And so the point that they're making here with these various four issues here is that Reformed apologetics raises this epistemological awareness that needs to be there for a person to do, apologetics appropriate. Right. That's the basic idea.